Well, hello everyone. Buenos dias. This is Christian Landaeta Torres, and I have today the pleasure of introducing you to a person that I could never dream that I would meet so many years after I discovered his and his band's one of their albums. And so we have Mr. Peter Wolf. Is that right? Please introduce yourself, sir, all the way from Flame Drink, which is right at my back.
Hi to everybody. My name is Peter Wolf. I write lyrics, I sing, I play flute, various saxophones. In my youth years, also the oboe, very tricky instrument for intonation. And I'm born in Dublin, Ireland. That may explain a couple of things, which we can talk later about.
Yes.
Because Ireland has a very long history with poetry, with writing, etc. And that's about the short story.
Yeah, I'm so glad that we can finally meet and talk. It was a coincidence, and in fact, a strange coincidence, that I found this LP Supervision at a big record chain store that is no longer in existence. It was in the center of Santiago, the capital city of, Chile, and it was Supervision. It was in the mid 80s. And I thought, the cover is interesting. Those eyes are telling me, pick me and give me a chance. I was then producing programs and being a sort of DJ in I think in the biggest FM station here in Santiago, Concerto FM. And Vertigo, the label, was also meaningful to me. So I picked the record, I listened to it, and I took it home. So I then decided that Tragedy became one of my, if not my, favorite track on the album. So that's the story on my side. But then I found out that you had several other records and that you came up in 2024 with this new album, which is amazingly special in the way that it's quite different in many ways. You are luckily and incredibly as well the same guys, the same band members, except for one of them. You have this addition of an incredible guitar player, which is somebody who I think has a very important presence in the music throughout the album. Yeah.
That is very correct. Yeah. It's actually Alex Hutchins.
Yes.
And if I may explain you quickly the story about this. Switzerland is a very small country, and if you play or compose music in a niche, be it classical, be it jazz. I have a brother that for his whole lifetime has been doing jazz and avant-garde projects and theater music. You always have to be flexible. So when we did the first 5 albums, at very first 6 albums, I'm sorry to say, when we were very young musicians. And obviously, by growing up in that field of music, we had to find out it's a mission impossible to make a living of this in a small country like Switzerland, even though we were of the very few bands, due to our stage presence, that we had a distribution contract at the time with Phonogram. Phonogram does not exist anymore now. It's part of Universal. As you know, there's only 3 big major labels left, sadly. And they all swallowed up the smaller labels or the independent labels at a certain time. Obviously, then there was a counter movement where other independent labels suddenly started to being invented or exist. But that's another story. But in the case of Phonogram, all those major labels at the time had, for certain styles of music, a particular label. And the progressive called label at the time with Phonogram was Vertigo. Now, I'm not sure if you know about the history of Vertigo because it's
Yeah.
very interesting.
Yeah.
The very
Um,
first
yeah.
Vertigo releases were actually from Black Sabbath.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, rest in peace, Ozzy
Yes.
Osbourne.
Uh,
And label was, which is very, very intriguing, it was black and white. And when you had it on your analog record player and the record was turning,
yeah.
the logo would actually give you like the distortion looking at it.
Hmm.
Later, the Vertigo label became very well known because of its second design. There was like a second incarnation of the design of the label, and that was actually done by Roger Dean. And Roger Dean, to many people, obviously is known because of his artwork from any bands from Uriah Heep over Ozzy Biza, most known naturally for his decennium long work for Yes and many other bands. So, in a way, both those labels had a certain cult status.
Hmm. Yeah. In fact, Peter, I had the very rare chance of going to the warehouse of Philips Records here in Santiago, Chile, back in '83. And
Yeah.
yeah, they have several bands that were never ever released here. They only released the Status Quo and I don't know, Gentle Giant in a glass house, which was very rare. But Chile had a very poor record industry, and not even the first Black Sabbath album came out. But yeah, I
Mhm.
remember the story well. Oh, sorry, my cat wants to participate. Yeah, so that's it.
Yeah.
Ah,
Interesting enough that a lot of the releases in those years were always, sadly, also tied up to policies because between those established record companies, there was not only a lot of competition, there was also a lot of, how would I say, mimicry going on. That if one band was on a certain label, you could be sure you could not get released either on the same label, or if you had bad luck and the competitor label knew the boss of the other label for whatever reasons. We don't want to go into these details because the reason we started our band was music, music, and only music again. And this passion for music has remained throughout our whole lifetime.
yeah, that's good. Yeah, well, I suppose that what made you decide, besides reissuing these previous albums on CD, that's one of the things that I wanted to ask you. I suppose that there was something that, oh, how can we just reissue these records on CD? You still feel the energy and the spirit. So I think that's the reason why you made this incredible
Good,
album. Yeah,
good question.
yeah,
Uh, I need a bit of long answer for that,
yeah.
if
You
it's
go ahead.
possible.
Of course.
That you grant me that time, please.
Yes.
Thanks. Uh, Basically, when we split up in 1986 after our sixth album, we didn't split up because we weren't good friends anymore or because we had lost a passion for music. It was just you couldn't make an existence. So, as many other musicians also in the UK, for example, our dear good friend Nick Magnus, who
Yeah.
played at the beginning of the 80s in the excellent band of Steve Hackett,
Yes.
Spectral Mornings, Defector, during that period,
Mhm.
fantastic albums came out, and Nick Magnus was not only the keyboard player, he also did arrangements and
Mhm.
also uh, some of the compositions. And as with Roland Rookstool, our guy on the piano, keyboards, composer, arranger, Nick actually had to work in Britain as a demonstrator for Roland keyboards. And the same happened in our case, the Roland Gluckstuhl. In the case of our drummer, he left then for LA to do some session work on the American East Coast. After 2 years, he had enough and he came back, opened his own drum school, and developed his passion for vintage drums. The bass player, guitar player, Urs Hochuli, he expanded because he has, beside being a very good musician, an incredible talent for design, be it for theater productions, be it for we have quite a well-known comic festival in our hometown of Lucerne since more than 30 years. It's called Fumetto. We've also had artists from Chile, by the way,
Wow.
that were part of that festival, because the comic scene is something very, very special, linked also on a worldwide basis. And he also worked in various other production fields.
Peter, I'm sorry, do you remember any of the names from Chile? It's too long away. Too far
too
away in
long
time.
away, and
Yeah,
I'm
okay.
sorry to say,
No, never
because
mind.
every
Yeah.
year they have
Okay.
dozens of artists they
Yeah.
invite.
Okay.
And we also had in the 90s in our small hometown of Lucerne an experimental video festival where many new things were happening in the video field. And also there we had a couple of times artists from Chile that would participate.
Yeah.
So getting back to what were we doing in all those many years between the last album,
Yeah.
the sixth album in 1986, and if I may say so, the comeback album, which we released on our own label in 2024.
Yes.
I spent quite a long time in Ireland, my country where I was born, also for various cultural things. I actually was involved in stage productions with Brecht Weil, timeless classics, fantastic music, fantastic lyrics, without any time lap or whatever, because they're as good now today as they were when they were composed and first time performed. And the same with George Gershwin, works like Porgy and Bess, whatever, timeless classics. And as you know, there's thousands of incredible songs in the Great American Songbook and in other fields of music, which again and again, if you're a singer, it's always very, very challenging, interesting, intriguing to do those songs.
And you have some incredible bands that we happen to get to know here, like the Chieftains, I guess. Are they not from Ireland? Yeah.
They are from Ireland, exactly.
Yeah.
Actually, also Planet, because my mother was a born Brennan. And as you know, in Planet, there were at the beginning 4 Brennans, to this day still 2 Brennans.
Yeah, I airplayed a lot. I love Clan, and I'm a big fan of them. And so yeah, interesting to know that you were born there. I forgot mentioning, if you allow me to, Peter, at the beginning of the conversation, that you've been in Switzerland for a long time, for long years, and that's the land of an interesting bass player from an interesting band that I think you should be proud of, and you surely are, which is Circus.
Marco Cerletti.
Exactly, yeah. And look what I have this. This is an incredible album. Yeah. And Random and Providence, the title track, was one of the most successful tracks on Futuro FM in the 80s. And I had the lucky chance to talk to this guy. So, I think the most well-known and most popular, or one of the most popular artists from Switzerland here is Andreas Vollenweider.
Exactly. Whom I also know personally, because Switzerland is such a small country. By the way, when we were growing up, we had one concert together with that band Circus They were the main act. We were like the support act, if I may say so.
Yeah, yes.
Volkshaus in Zurich in 1978. And my brother actually worked with Marco Cialetti on a
Wow.
theater production.
Wow.
And Fritz Hauser, the drummer, developed into the world, if I may say so, of percussion. He's an incredible drummer and great musician. And our drummer, Pete and Fritz, they are still in contact. To this day,
Excellent.
Pete's big passion beside music are the vintage drums. So any drummer now in Switzerland that has an old Ludwig or Gretsch or Pearl kit, whatever, Slingerland, also maybe sono drums, and some part is missing, the chance they will end up with Pete is relatively big because
Good.
he will find he has a huge assortment of spare parts which he has gathered over the last 30, 35 years. So
Mm-hmm.
he's always to help out with spare parts. And the
So,
amazing thing
yeah.
is with
Uh-huh.
drummers,
Mm-hmm.
as you may know, you can put a drummer of a jazz band, a
Oh, yeah.
classical percussionist, a drummer of a heavy metal band, and a drummer of a hip hop band on one table, and they will start talking about their gadgets and what they're using
Mm-hmm.
and whatever their paradiddles are, and it will be non-stopping. And
Yes.
it's the genre of musicians, they connect the fastest.
Yeah. And you have
Very
an
interesting about drummers.
sure, you have an amazing drummer, by the way, Mr. Pete Ferrer, who
Yeah,
sounds
very
amazing. Yeah, he sounds amazing on the new album. And I forgot mentioning one other very interesting band that some people know here, and it's Yellow, with Carlos
yeah.
Peron and the other guy. Yeah, yeah, I think they are amazing.
Actually, Yellow, for the most part of their career, have been a duo. Boris Blanc, Dieter Meier.
Yeah,
Carlos Peron was, at the very beginning, had a very important role. But as with many artists, it's always possible that you would develop into maybe some different
yeah,
directions.
yeah.
Yeah.
Now, about Silent Transition, Peter, which is an album I recommend to anyone watching this, has received mixed reviews. Some of them are very, very positive. You have a lot of those reviews on the flamedream.com webpage that I suggest everyone visits. And some people think that the band could be absolutely fascinating, being an instrumental band. I don't know what they mean,
Yeah.
but I don't know. I'm sure
It's no surprise.
you can you can tell us
It's
about
no
how
surprise.
about your role
There's
in
there's nothing as individual as a
yeah,
voice. So
exactly.
there's always has been, there always will be very various, how can I say,
Views,
views or ears or whatever
yeah,
about a voice. Nothing to do only with me. And basically, it's something that I would not want to comment because at the end of the day, naturally, everybody has his or her right to have his or her opinion.
yeah,
The voice I have is as it is.
it
Maybe
is.
you will notice once you receive the Out in the Dark CD that on the album Silent Transition, it's a bit, the vocals are a bit more laid back. The reason is that it's a question of taste, how much you want to put the vocals in the mix right into the front. And never forget, please, that for budget reasons, because we were totally independent, we recorded the whole vocals not in a recording studio. They're all recorded in our rehearsal room.
Okay.
So the only thing on Silent Transition that was actually recorded in a studio was the guitar.
Okay.
Because we did
Okay.
all the rehearsals with Alex in Bristol. Then there was a gap in between, and then the recording was done of the guitar in the studio.
Okay. Okay.
So I'm technically not proficient enough to say if the result would have been any different, or maybe in the ears of certain listeners better.
Yeah.
Basically, it's interesting that one review was a bit slagging, if I may say so, but you can find that even with very, very well-known names.
Exactly.
And
Yes.
at the end of the day, it's a big question of taste in rock music. How much do you want to push? Basically, from my vocal range and also from the chords I still have, lucky enough, because I've always taken very big care of them, I could have pushed a lot more. So let's leave it open how
Yep.
this may sound in future.
Yeah. If you think
Because
you, yeah.
at the end of the day, if I do a vocal for a certain composition, Roland and myself, we try to fit it into the whole sound pattern or the whole composition or arrangement as good as possible in our ears. And basically, it's always a question of taste, how much you would like to have that
Of course.
pushed
And
out.
yeah, you have this permanent discussion of Peter Gabriel or Phil Collins. I don't think that even not Peter Gabriel nor Fish, who had an incredible stage persona, and Peter Gabriel, no one could say that they are good or bad singers. That's not the topic, but they are the legend that they are today, and so you in your own space. So that
Yeah.
I don't think that's an issue. I just wanted to mention it because there's so many different, and as you say, it's a little bit harsh comments. It's not our topic today. I was going to ask you. To me, Silent Transition is the track I would personally pick for radio airplay. Maybe with making it a little bit shorter, though I don't think you would like the idea. But there's been a true transition in the format and the concept of the band sound to a heavier, to my ears, a little bit heavier sound. It's very cinematic to me. I'm a big film soundtrack collector and passionate. So 3 of the tracks of the album last from 10 to 12 minutes. And the final one, the closing track, is almost 15 minutes with this almost soundtrack-ish feel to it. I'm sure that you made some rock-minded rockers happy, but I also think that you might be reaching some more heavier prog rockers. I don't know if you care about that. Maybe you don't like labels, but I'm sure that this is the chance. This silent transition has possibly taken you and is still taking you to a wider audience than what Plain Dream originally had in the late 70s and late 80s, the early 80s.
You are asking a very, very difficult question.
Sorry.
Uh, it's basically when we worked on those compositions, the aim was to make interesting music.
Sure.
And we didn't have a clue at the beginning how it would all turn out in the end. And Alex Hutchins, who also was part in Stephen Wilson's band on the Home Invasion tour, there's a fantastic DVD of Stephen Wilson playing at the Royal Albert Hall in London. It was released in 2018. And Alex actually took over from Guthrie Govan, incredible guitar player too, and Dave Kilmister. And it's really superb, the musicianship. It's all that I can say. And it was a great string of luck for us that when Alex heard the demo tapes when at a stage when we were still working on them, that he actually agreed to participate.
Okay.
And basically, naturally, a riff as on Silent Transition may be a bit of surprise for listeners that were maybe had in their ears an album like Elements or Out in the Dark, but at the same time, music is there to develop, and we thought this riff fits perfect into this composition.
Uh-huh. Yeah. And I forgot mentioning something that is very important. You just mentioned important people, not band members, but people who have collaborated and contributed to the sound. Let's tell the people watching us that your albums, the band Flame Dream, began. The first one was released in 1979, Calatia, then Elements, 79 as well.
Those two were recorded by Jean Ristori.
Yeah, yeah. He has a connection with Patrick Moraz, I guess.
Exactly. Jean Ristori started as a bass and cello player.
Oh, wow.
At a time when Patrick Moraz was doing film soundtracks for his living, and there was this band, it's a bit of cult band, called Main Horse, where Jean Ristori played the bass and the cello.
Yeah.
And Patrick Moraz then moved on over to Britain to form a trio called Refugee with the bass player, drummer of the ex-Nice, and the rest is history. With his participation during almost 3 years with Yes during the Relayer period.
Yeah, and there's kind of
Jean Ristori, a lot of people do not know, was at that time actually the live sound engineer for Yes.
Yeah, sure he was.
Almost 2 years.
Yeah, so possibly that's how the connection between Moraz and Yes came out.
When that folded up, because for various reasons, Patrick Moraz was let go. Aquarius Studios in Geneva were already at the start. And I don't know if you're familiar with John McLaughlin for sure. But also Shakti and Shankar.
Of course.
Of course.
Yeah.
A passionate music lover, naturally, yes. And there is a fantastic album that was recorded in the Aquarius Studio in Geneva called Natural Elements.
Yeah,
with Zach Hussain on percussion. And Jean Ristori recorded it. It was released at the time on CBS. And naturally, a lot of prog fans know that in 1976, Patrick Moraz released his first solo album called The Story of I. And that whole album, except for the percussionists, which were recorded in Rio de Janeiro, was all recorded by Jean Ristori in the Aquarius Studio in Geneva.
Well, believe it or not, I think that's one other rare occasion where Philips in Chile decided to release this Patrick Moraz album. I don't think that anybody knew who Patrick Moraz was. We had a single of Morty Vicar, which is a fantastic single. And I think that the album also came out here. But I was going to say that if we continue with the discography of Flame Dream, then you have this Out in the Dark, just reissued on CD, which I think, by the way, has like a Canterbury-ish air in it. You were quite more, you had a more jazzy sound in the beginning.
Also elements.
Yeah, elements as well. Yeah, but I was going to mention that this Out in the Dark from 1981 was mastered by no less than Kevin Metcalf, who also worked with David Bowie, Lou Reed, Guess Who, and several other artists. He really has a monstrous curriculum. And then came Supervision in 82 and Travaganza 83. And 8 on 6 is the closing of the series in the 80s. But I see that you're not reissuing Travaganza or 8 on 6. So maybe you have a little story about those, the two last ones.
we work as independent producers, and the track we're following now, we're started with Out in the Dark now in August. It will be followed by Elements in November 2025, followed by Supervision end of January 2026, and next spring Galatea. Those are the early 4 progressive rock albums. Pravaganza 8 and 6 were more song orientated, and everything is a question of taste. We learned a lot with those albums, but it's no secret if you get feedbacks of prog lovers that they are hooked to the first 4 albums.
I was going to say that since you kindly sent me the digital files of the first, or most of them, I wasn't aware of those records until you sent me the files, and I was surprised to see that they are quite, I mean, it's my personal perception that Supervision is away from the sound of the first 2 albums. Supervision to me sounds more lots of synthesizers. I even think that there are some bits that make it a little bit, it has something from the new wave emerging sound of the days.
Correct.
In a way, but the first 2 albums are incredibly progressive. I mean, much more progressive. There's no sense in comparing how progressive one album is compared to the rest. But I was really surprised and pleasantly surprised by those first albums. So yeah, it's good that you are
basically the situation was the 3rd album, Out in the Dark, was still recorded at Aquarius Studios in Geneva, but mainly by John Aycock. Jean Ristori was kind enough to help at the beginning because it was a custom-built desk, custom-built analog desk, and it was a monster to use. I don't want to go into details. It wasn't very reliable, and it was very, very tricky to work on. But if you could get it to work, it did wonders. So because of John Aycock, and because you want to change, you want to develop as a musician, we recorded Supervision in London, actually a bit outside of London, in a private studio owned by Eddie Hardin. Now, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the name of Eddie Hardin. Sadly, he has passed away a couple of years ago. He was a very, very good songwriter and organ player, keyboard piano player, at the time with the Yardbirds, and he had a duo with Pete York, the English drummer Pete York, which was called Hardin and York. So John Aycock knew Eddie Hardin quite well and worked regularly there, and obviously the sound we got out of that Trident desk in his studio was very, very different from what we had worked with in Geneva. It may sound very surprising if I tell a story like that now, because today almost everything sounds the same due to digital technology. It's a different story.
It's not good. That's not good.
But that's fact, as we know.
Yeah.
And so many people use the same samples or plugins or whatever. It's a different story. But basically, we had a distribution contract then via Phonogram Hamburg, and the album Supervision was released all over Europe, and it was also exported, as already Out in the Dark, into the US. So then if you get to that stage, like it or not, we didn't realize it at that time we were doing it, but in retrospective, you can see it very clearly. You start to make yourself, even if you work as independent musician or producers, you start to make yourself or create yourself more pressure. And the thing we found out was very simple. If you don't have a management that can buy you in as support act for a band better known so that you can go on concert tours as the supporting act to get your music known by more people. The only other way of reaching people, and I don't have to explain that to you because it's been your lifetime passion and work, is to get into the radio. So if you listen to Supervision, there's still highly complex tracks as Paradise Lost or the title track Supervision. But by that time, we had also developed more into songwriters, if I may say so. Because if you look at the structure of a track like Tragedy, it has a more conventional structure in the song than a track like Supervision, or maybe if you listen to Out in the Dark, a long composition like Strange Meeting.
I'd like to ask you a question here, Peter. Did you ever think that Tragedy, for example, would have become a single? Did you, as a band, did you ever thought that you should make singles out of the records? Because I think that Tragedy was not only for Futuro FM, Future FM in Chile, but for any radio station that would play ballads like Kaylee, like Marillion, etc., etc., etc.
Very difficult question, because at the time it was not an issue. And though we produced totally independent and we delivered the finished tape, the master tape, and the cover art to Phonogram, it was not upon to us to decide such a question, because there is a limit to where you can go of being independent if you work with one of the majors.
Okay.
I don't say in a negative way, I just say the way it was.
Okay, I understand. Now, talking about the way you work, do you create your music collaboratively, I think, like as a band, or does someone among the band members pull the trigger first? And you were saying also that sometimes lyrics come first, although sometimes music comes first, and we're going to talk about poetry later. But how do you start working? Is it a group thing, or is there anyone there, maybe you yourself, suggest the initial idea? How do you do it?
So we have gone through very different stages. We started actually as a band of 6 improvising. And out of those improvisations, you would actually start to develop tracks or pieces of music. Then when Roland Ruckstuhl moved in, things changed because he is a classically trained composer, arranger. So part of that Galatea album was already composed music, not improvised music anymore. And the lyrics would actually be written after the music.
Mm-hmm.
So they were like maybe an extreme way of formulating it, but they were actually like mass tailored to fit to the music. Then comes a radical break because before recording the first album, the 6-piece band had shrunk to a 5-piece band. So the big difference between Galatea and Elements was on Galatea, we had a 5th musician playing guitar and doing lead vocals. You can hear that, especially if you hear it in the headphones, that the lead vocals were not done at the time by me. So basically, when we got to the stage of Elements, the biggest question was first, where can we find a guitar player now that fits the type of music we are playing, composing? And no chance at that time to find anybody that would actually fit into it, if I may say so. Because please remember that in those years, you couldn't visit a scholarship here in Switzerland and learn the modern techniques of the electric guitar, speaking about tremolo arm bending, pentatone chordings, you know, using the tremolo arms, then also the finger tapping that guitarists like Steve Hackett invented, where actually with the right hand that usually hits the strings or uses the plectrum, that it would actually go over the guitar neck and also tap notes on the strings. Today, all these techniques are standard, but in those years, all or almost non-existent. So when we did Elements, the question was obviously, what are we doing with lyrics? And without going into detail now, I suggested then we should actually use interesting, intriguing poems that would fit the title Elements and actually compose the music on those special poems. And the same we did on the album Out in the Dark, with one exception, is this more ballad type song, a bit dreamy, called Nocturnal Flight, which is actually a lyric that I wrote to this piano piece. It was a piano piece at the beginning.
Yeah, and I was going to go in that direction. How much, well, we know that it has inspired you. How much has literature and our poetry inspired the lyrics? All of you seem to be avid readers. In fact, in the booklet, in the incredible booklet of Silent Transition that is so eye-catching, there's an incredible artwork and some statements. I don't know if they are from the lyrics, but
Not from the lyrics.
Yeah. And you have, I think that you have been inspired, or some of the poets that are mentioned in the story, John Davis, Robert Graves, Thomas Hardy, Edward Thomas, and Wilfred Owen, the soldier poet, and some more modern ones like Paul Lynch from Ireland, Your Land.
Yeah, there's a slight difference there, Christian, that on the early albums mentioned, Elements, Out in the Dark, the music was actually composed to poems. What we did on Silent Transition was something very, very different, because the title has a meaning. It has many, many different meanings, actually, at what is going on right now in our troubled world. So basically, one of the many things, if I may say so, is, sadly, that less people take the time to read. And without wanting to sound anyway corny or as to give any impression as if we would know anything better, that's not the case, definitely not. We just thought, let's use the opportunity that each one of us musicians recommends one of the books that has left a deep impression on him. So that's why those 4 book titles actually turned up on the booklet under each portrait of us musicians in that booklet of Silent Transition. And you were mentioning Paul Lynch. Obviously, I chose an Irish writer, and I'm not sure if you are aware, he won the European Book Prize in November 2023. And that book, Prophet Song, was actually released or published a good year before what's going on now over the big Atlantic.
Yeah, it's very sad.
I'm not saying any names, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, in fact, that's one of the points I wanted to present here. The world as it was and as it is today, of course, it's relevant to you as artists, composers, creators, to me as a listener, music fan, teacher, etc. Do you make this music, well, obviously to feel alive, to keep the spirits up, as a way out from the tensional and hyper technological but troubled life today? Because we really are living very particular times that I never even dreamed of when I first saw supervision back there. Life changed so quickly, but so much.
You're asking a very, very difficult question. I'll try and answer it as good as I can, Christian. Let's talk first about music before we talk on what's going all around it. Obviously, the status of music in the way people listen to music today has changed due to modern technology. So basically, it's become accessible to as many people as never ever before, and you can stream millions of songs on a small portable device. So the assumption could be, or maybe, that due to that development, we're living in brilliant times for musicians, but it's not the case, for the simple reason that the technical monopoly on those new technologies are in very few hands. Maybe you are aware that the three major record companies left, Universal, CBS, Sony, and Warner, are also, for example, the main shareholders in Spotify. That company started very small. Meanwhile, it has more than 90% of the streaming market in Europe. Downloads have totally gone down, digital downloads. On the other hand, you have a revival of vinyl, especially in the big cities. You find more vinyl stores now than you did 5 or even 10 years ago. And also, in spite of streaming options, there are still a lot of music lovers, music aficionados, as we call them, in the classical field, in jazz, in progressive rock, in film soundtracks, also in other genres as heavy metal or progressive metal, that still actually want to buy the music and contribute to a moderate remuneration of the artists that actually have created the music. Because as we are all aware, if you're not the exception of the exception of the exception of the exception, and you can generate millions or billions of streams, as some artists actually do, you end up in the streaming field as nowhere, and whatever comes in there is actually neglectable. So that's the answer on the music side. The second answer to your question would be on a more philosophical level. If things around you are difficult or in a bad state, naturally art, any art form, be it music, be it sculpture, be it poetry, whatever, has and always will be a reflection of that. But this is my subjective personal feeling about it. It's simpler, or it's easier to create something where you scream out your anger about all this injustice that is going on in our world, than actually to try and create something that is non-superficial on the one hand, but on the other hand, still gives you a spark of hope and a spark of uplifting. Maybe if I say this, it's also my Irish side that says, if things go rough, you even have to fight harder to develop or show up the positive sides, which still exist.
Of course.
And the third option, or the third way of answering your question, would obviously be that due to modern digital recording technologies, any musician, composer, or band today, if you know how to work this technology, you have possibilities now when you record, which never were available at the time when we did our first 5 albums. So an album like Silent Transition could not have been developed and recorded without a digital software.
I see.
So
Yep, go ahead.
I don't know how good or how well these 3 answers would cover your question.
Very well. They do. Yeah, they covered it very well. Now, as a teacher, I've been asking over and over again some of my students, oh, what's your favorite band? And there's a silence in the place because they are exposed to so much. Personally, we would have never even dreamed of being able to listen to so much music. I think that here in Chile, at least, we only got to know, and in most parts of the world, I guess, the bands coming from Great Britain, Pink Floyd, King Crimson, Emerson, Lake and Palmer, and yes, and of course my beloved Genesis. And but I don't know. It was a difficult. It was impossible to even know the faces of those who were singing or played the instruments back in those days. Now there's an overexposure to everything that my students. That's the reason I think that they remain silent. They don't know. They don't have favorite bands. They don't have a cult following. So I don't know what was. I couldn't say that the past was better, but in terms of music, access to
It was
music.
very different, Christian.
Yeah.
It was very different. And never forget that our generation, when we grew up, we didn't have all those distractions that exist today.
Yeah.
Social media,
Yes.
so many other things. How did Roger Waters say it in The Wall? 100 channels of TV shit to choose from, whatever. Basically, you have to get around with this situation, because I don't know how we would have reacted growing up in today with all these influences, also this visual overexposure, as you expressed it, because it detracts. I can only speak for my friends and colleagues that I had when we were growing up, that basically the pocket money that we had for use, it was all spent on vinyl records and on books finished. And you had one pair of jeans and a jeans jacket and a t-shirt, and that was it. So basically things have changed. So
yeah, they have. Yeah. I was going to mention you did talk about it. You are a saxophone player, flute player, and an oboe player. 2 questions in one.
Element, yeah, elements.
Yeah.
I played also oboe.
You're right. You're right. Is there any of you that were trained formally? Are you just self-taught musicians? That's one question.
Well, basically, Roland did the conservatory, and the same with me. I did it for flute and saxophone jazz school, and Pete did the jazz school and classical percussion, which is was at that time a very special field, because it was actually it was located in the same music college where they were teaching church music and church organ. You know, choir music and organ was in the same school in Lucerne as classical percussion. And Urs Hochuli, the bass player, also played guitar on the Supervision album and Travaganza and 8 and 6, actually comes more from the rock school.
Yeah, but you as
we are trained.
Yeah, you as a
when we didn't have a singer anymore, and I started to take singing lessons and spending a lot of time how to find out how you can make most out of your voice, basically the oboe, it wasn't possible for me anymore also to keep up with the oboe because it's an instrument that takes a lot of time. I subsidized it with the sopranino saxophone.
Okay.
Which is easier because it's in the same key as the alto saxophone.
But about silent transition, I think there is no flute. Sorry. There is a little bit, yeah, you're right.
There is. At the end of the title track, there is.
Yes, that's right.
And there's some distorted saxophone on the final track.
That's why. But distorted, because if it wasn't distorted, it would have given the album a more jazzy feel to it, and maybe you didn't want that. So that's the reason of my question or my statement that maybe you're reaching heavier prop-minded people these days with this silent transition than before. I don't know. All in all, yeah, all the instruments that should be there are there, and there is saxophone, as you say, and there is flute. But I think that the album sounds much heavier to me than the rest of the production of Flame Dream, and that's, I think, what is making it, has been making it a powerful new entry. And yeah,
maybe it's also because it's never forget, Christian, it's the first time we recorded with digital technology.
Sure.
It's very, very different in every sense, but we will see. We're still learning.
Yeah. It's never time to stop learning.
You never stop learning, you know?
No.
We didn't, when we worked on that album, we didn't have a purpose to say this should sound heavier now or whatever. Because it's also the first time, not only that we worked with digital recording, but also the mixing desk, the Harrison desk, which we used at Soundform Studios, it was all entirely new to us. And we had a limited time available. And what's also interesting, in the old days, we mixed the whole album in one go.
Okay.
And now, for various reasons, we mixed one track after the other, always with 1 or 2 weeks in between.
Okay.
It's just the way it turned out because it was the only time available where we could use that, if I may say so, very well in the studio.
Now it's interesting.
We couldn't do that in our rehearsal room.
I understand. Now it's interesting that for vinyl these days, my own experiences. I'm not only a music lover and passionate record collector, but I'm very critical about the quality of the pressings that have been coming out lately. Some of them not very good at all, and it's disappointing and interesting that the original pressings, many of them, Vertigo was an amazing. They had an amazing pressing quality. Albums by bands like Caterpillar, Black Sabbath. The bass, the soundstage in those days was totally mind-blowing. Now you have noisy records, noisy pressings, and etc. I am sure that you did take care well of where you were going to press silent transition,
Yeah,
and it's
we did.
interesting that the space. Some people are not aware of this, but the wider the space between the groove spins, the better chance you have to make bass sound good, etc., etc. So how is the vinyl edition going? By the way,
It's-
I want my
yeah,
copy.
it's
I'm going
going
to
very,
order
very
it.
well, Christian.
Okay,
We're
excellent.
absolutely surprised about this because getting back to the fact that we work as independent producers, we didn't have a clue how people would react to this album, Silent Transition.
Mhm.
And we were very, very positively surprised about the majority of the feedbacks. You will always find some exceptions. We discussed this point at the beginning of our talk, and we then said, okay, let's see how things develop. Once the first edition of the CD is sold, we do a second edition of the CD and continue and see if it's budget-wise possible to do a vinyl record on 180-gram vinyl in top quality. And we always said, if we're going to do that, we're going to do that in that factory in Munich that actually produces all the albums for ECM.
Oh, yeah. So they
Because
have they have to be good.
for my ears, or for our ears, that's top quality.
Exactly.
So we had to wait and be patient for 1 year. So the vinyl version of Silent Transition only was released in May 2025. And
And
the first, and I just had, I was yesterday in the office of Urs Kach, who handles the whole label for us. He's my former neighbor, actually, and a very friend, and total passionate music lover, incredible, very, very reliable. And actually, he told me that the first edition, if it continues that way, it will soon be gone.
how many copies were there? I'm sorry.
The vinyl album, we just gave it a go at the beginning and thought we're going to make 500 double
500.
album.
That's
Yeah.
yeah, that's very limited. Yeah.
Small limited edition, because again, Christian, after such a long gap, we didn't have any idea if this would interest actually vinyl lovers. And from the start of the release of that album, the feedbacks were so good and so positive.
Yeah, sure. How could they not? It's
Yeah,
an amazing
there's,
album.
there's,
Yeah.
there's also some feedbacks that actually say that the sound is warmer. I cannot judge on this because it depends a lot on which equipment, with which record player, with which needle you actually listen to music and what reference points you actually have in your ears.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Now,
Hopefully,
yes,
it's
yes.
going to be also from the vinyl, a second edition.
Yeah, I don't want to end up with no copy of it, so I'm going to act soon. Now, by what I read and the different many interviews and articles that you have in your flamedream.com website, um, my wish is that you release the old live tapes you mentioned you have from the supervision tour, I guess. And
Yeah.
particularly, I don't know if you are going to be touring. I have no idea, really. I haven't asked you about this. If you would record any silent transition shows, maybe live, that would be amazing to eventually in the future, maybe someday, maybe not, who knows, have a silent transition tour live version.
Yeah, I'm afraid to say, Christian, this is very, very far reached because we are, as already explained several times,
Yeah.
independent producers. And basically, the idea is now to focus on the back catalog, to bring, we digitized all those analog tapes as authentically and one-to-one without changing anything as authentically as possible. And this will keep us going until next spring. And then, obviously, if you have limited resources as we have, you have to make a very fundamental decision. Do you want to invest your time, your energy into composing again new music? Or do you want to go for the live track? Plus, never forget, if you want to play music in the complexity of silent transition without any playbacks or call-offs from any MacBooks or whatever, it's something very standard today. In the old days, people would really criticize a band or a musician for doing that. Today, we know it's standard, but still, if you want to play all these arrangements live, naturally, we would need the presence of Alex Hutchins, but also, as I cannot sing and play saxophone and flute together, we would need another multi-instrumentalist. And if you go to the percussion side, the percussion on silent transition is, if you listen to it in the headphones, highly complex. So also in that field, you would need a guest musician. So as you know, Christian, guest musicians of that caliber or experience, or however you want to name it, you have to be able to stem that. And at the time being, we don't see that happen. Actually, when I was last time in London, I met Nick Magnus, who just released last autumn his 7th solo album. It's called A Strange Inheritance. I can highly recommend it to you and all your listeners. It's a fantastic album, very, very good lyrics too, by Dick Foster. And basically, we talked about various things, what's going on, and he has a very similar situation, that if he would want to present the arrangements of his solo albums live without using playbacks or play-ins or whatever you want to name it, he would need to have a full band. And this is something that for many musicians now, it's frankly speaking, it's not affordable.
I understand.
Maybe a bit disillusioning what I am saying to you, but so many things have to get together if you want to stem a live production.
No, I understand it completely, and I wish that you go on after this reunion after so long, and that you can make more music to make us happy as we can in these strange days, because music is always the light there, you know. So maybe the old tapes could be released someday then.
We will see. We will see, Christian, because we've digitized all the albums, the studio albums, and the big job of going through the live tapes still has to be done. There's actually one recording that we were able to do. It was actually organized by the Swiss-French TV station in Geneva. They enabled us during the supervision tour, I think I wrote that to you, that we were able to go into Aquarius Studios, and Jean Ristori actually recorded us, and it went live into the radio.
Yeah.
That was a
Good.
fantastic opportunity we had.
So that's it. We are going to be waiting for that. Maybe some days, who knows? Yeah. And you were lucky, by the way, I was going to say that you were lucky that you had the rights to your own music, because in Chile, several amazing, incredibly famous and important bands like Congreso or Congress, they had to go through big headaches to get the rights to repress the albums. And because it's in the hands of the Universal Music, as you said before, it used to be EMI here in Chile, but then they had a hard time
EMI was swallowed up then later by
Universal. Yeah, but then it's ridiculous to me. It sounds ridiculous, or well, there are legal issues, and I don't understand that. You were lucky then that you got the tapes yourselves. I mean, in your hands, so to speak.
It's a strange thing that we had when we were already in very young years, that we always said to ourselves, we should keep the tapes in our hands.
Yeah, and you could.
Didn't know exactly why then, but later we heard so many bad stories from musicians who are also part producers, where tapes had been specifically left in a drawer or in a warehouse or wherever, and it almost an impossibility or a nightmare to get those tapes out or back.
Well, they might have
into the hands of the people who actually created the music.
Yeah, or maybe they got lost, and you have these terrible fires in the Universal Studios that, many masters disappeared. So you were very lucky, and your followers and fans around the world are very lucky that they can enjoy, myself included, enjoy and discover for the first time the origins of Flame Dreams. So I'm very happy that we've had this chance to have this conversation today, maybe the first of some more. I really like to keep the idea of getting together again with Roland Ruckstuhl. I would be really amazing, because there are so many more things that we could cover about this new effort. So congratulations on this long career, Peter Wolf. It's been a pleasure talking to you. You've been very kind, very communicative. So has Urs, your manager, been. And thank you very much for your interest. And I'm lucky that I got finally, after, I don't want to mention how many years, have this almost surreal connection with that voice that came out from tragedy that I still love till today.
From our side, also a very big thank you to you for your time, for your interest, your passion for music, everything you do, and also to all your listeners.
Yeah, well, thank you again. And
all the best.
Sure. So, Peter, thanks again a lot. It's been a pleasure and an honor and an amazing moment with you. I hope we keep in touch. And so, thanks again.
And we will send you, Christian, the artwork and the lyrics of Elements around mid-September.
Thank you very much.
So in about, I can't tell you exactly, but in the next 4 to 5 to 6 weeks, you will have that ready on a mail. And the CD will go out of Elements to you sometime end of October.
Yeah, as I said, Out in the Dark is already here, so thanks a lot. And please give hello and hugs and everything, handshakes to Peter Ferrer, to Urs Oculi, and Roland Ruckstuhl, and Alex Hutchins, please, all the way from Chile.
I will.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
I'll get back to you next week about the vinyl LP and about genre.
Thanks so much.
All the best. Thank you very, very much, Christian.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.